want to say hello and welcome on behalf of all my colleagues at the Telos Alliance, Telos, Omnia, Axia, 25/7, and Linear Acoustic. We are delighted to be able to sponsor tonight's dinner here at this SBE National Meeting and Awards Dinner. I want to recognize the Telos' partnership with the SBE. We're part of NS Workshops. Of course, we're part of this program tonight as sponsor of the dinner. And in lots of ways, we get to work with the SBE, and we find that a really terrific relationship. So Joe and John Poray and the entire staff at SBE, thank you for reaching out to us, and thank you for working with us and partnering to promote the values and goals of the Society of Broadcast Engineers. I also want to just take a second to point out that the honorees, the award winners at tonight's function, these are people who have been, are, and will continue to be leaders in the broadcast engineering community. It's important that we recognize what they do, that we examine what they have done and appreciate what they have done, and use them as examples for ourselves as broadcast engineers, as the future leaders of our industry moving forward. So I just hope that you will truly honor and appreciate the award winners at this dinner tonight, and let them know how much you appreciate them and look up to them, and again, use them as role models. John Poray and Joe Snelson, thanks again for this opportunity to work with you on sponsoring this dinner, and have a great dinner. Joe?
Welcome back. It's again my pleasure to welcome you to this year's SBE National Awards Dinner, and to those of you who are watching via live stream via the internet. We have enjoyed a wonderful dinner here at Turning Stone, and again, let's thank our sponsor, the Telos Alliance, one more time for their support of tonight's program. Thank you, Kirk and Telos Alliance. The SBE is governed by a dedicated group of volunteers who serve on the National Board of Directors. Most of the board is with us tonight. I would like to introduce them at this time. Please stand when I call your name, and I ask that you hold your applause until all the members of the board are standing. First, our officers. Vice President Jerry Massey of Greenville, South Carolina. Our Secretary, Jim Leifer of Boynton Beach, Florida. Our Treasurer, Andrea Cummis of Roslyn, New Jersey. Our directors this year include Tim Anderson of Covington, Kentucky. Benjamin Brenitzer of Charlotte, North Carolina. Ted Hand, also of Charlotte, North Carolina. Kirk Harnack of Nashville, Tennessee. And John Heimrell of Suffolk, Virginia. Also serving on the board are Ched Kyler of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Wayne Pacina of College Station, Texas. R.J. Russell of Tucson, Arizona. Kimberly Sachs of Lanham, Maryland. Eric Schechter of Phoenix, Arizona, and Dennis Wallace of Waldorf, Maryland. Not able to be with us tonight is Gary Klein of Atlanta, Georgia. Completing the board is our immediate past president, Ralph Hogan of Tempe, Arizona. Let's give them a hand. You may be seated. I would also like to take this opportunity to introduce our General Counsel for 34 years, Chris Imlay of Silver Springs, Maryland. Yes, and Chris is only 34 years old. This group has the responsibility of leading our organization of 5,000 members located in all 50 states and in 30 countries. I'm honored to be serving with such an outstanding group, especially this next year, as we look beyond the Society's first 50 years and on to the next 50. Thank you all for your commitment to the SBE. A number of our past national presidents have been with us today and are in attendance tonight. Gentlemen, please stand as I introduce you so we may show our appreciation. I just introduced him as he continues his role as immediate past president. Please welcome Ralph Hogan, who served 2 terms as SBE president from 2011 to 2013. From right nearby in Syracuse, please welcome Vinny Lopez. I don't know if Vinny's able to be in here because he may be at the controls. Oh, someone pointed. I think he's outside. Who served as president from 2009 to 2011. A member who served 3 different periods on the board dating back to the 1980s and was president from 2003 to 2005. Please welcome Ray Benedict of Columbia, Maryland. I don't know if Ray is with us tonight. A past president who continues to be very active locally and in our national task groups. Please welcome Ed Miller, SBE president from 1997 to 1999. And finally, we welcome Richard Rudman of Los Angeles, California, whose tenure as president dates back almost 30 years ago, from 1985 to 1987. Please give all these past leaders of SBE a great round of applause. Thank you, gentlemen. For 50 years, the SBE has worked to support our members, providing opportunities for education, certification, and participation and leadership in local chapters. We would like to recognize any of you who have been members of the SBE for 25 years or more. If you have been a member since 1989 or before, please stand and be recognized. Thank you. The first 300 members of the SBE are considered charter members. They were there at the beginning of the society, and if you have a member number of 300 or lower, please stand so we may recognize you. And we're pleased to have a sizable contingent from Chapter 1, the founding chapter, here with us tonight. Would the members of Chapter 1, Binghamton, New York, please stand and be recognized? The grade of fellow is the highest membership rank an SBE member can earn. It's not automatic. Candidates for fellow are nominated by the membership and elected by the national board. We will be recognizing one of our new fellow members later this evening. We also have a number of current SBE fellows with us tonight. Would all of our current fellow members in attendance please stand and be recognized? Thank you. We're pleased to have several of the national staff with us this evening. Their work behind the scenes helps to make the national meeting run smoothly, and they work daily on behalf from our headquarters in Indianapolis. Please stand as I introduce you. Kristen Owens, Education Director. Okay, she's behind, so behind me. Megan Clapp, Certification Director. And Executive Director John Poré. Let's give him a hand, please. The broadcasting industry has many membership organizations that represent individuals, broadcast stations, and suppliers within the industry. We are honored tonight to have a key leader of one of those associations with us tonight. Sam Matheny is new to the National Association of Broadcasters, but not to broadcasting. He is Executive Vice President and Chief Technology Officer at the NAB, a position he began in August. He leads the NAB technology team in its efforts to promote innovation in the industry and propel broadcast technology into the future. He also provides overall leadership for NAB Labs activities, including oversight of NAB Labs TV and radio technology committees. Sam is a member of the Board of Directors for the Advanced Television Systems Committee and serves as chairman of the ATSC 2.0 Specialist Group for the Next Generation of Digital Television. He is also a member of the FCC Communications Security, Reliability, and Interoperability Council, as well as a member of the Academy of Digital Television Pioneers and Mobile 500 Alliance. Sam has almost 20 years of experience in the broadcast technology industries. He previously served as Vice President of Policy and Innovation for Capital Broadcasting Company, where he focused on strategic media applications, mobile wireless content delivery, smart TV, and helped secure patents for broadcast internet distribution. He has also held management positions with mobile development, satellite, digital television, web development, and interactive video companies. Ladies and gentlemen, it is our pleasure to welcome Sam Matheny to our program tonight.
Thank you very much. It's a great honor to be here tonight, and I'm delighted to have the opportunity to talk with you all and to share some perspectives of the things that we're working on at the NAB in my new role. I'm especially glad to be here because being here, I know that I'm in a room of builders, I'm in a room of doers, I'm in a room of problem solvers, and I'm in a room of people that make things happen. And so that can be a bit intimidating. At the same time, it is invigorating. And so I'm excited about broadcast engineering and about SBE and about the opportunity to be here to celebrate the 50th anniversary. I do want to give a special thanks to John Portillo for inviting me to talk with you all, to Joe Snelson for his leadership, also to Christopher Bakura for also, I believe, having me here to talk with you all as the Chapter 22 chairman. So the NAB and SBE have a long and strong relationship. We've been in partnership for over 2 decades, and it was in 1992 that there was an SBE Day at NAB. And SBE, actually provided the content and programmed that day, and then that grew into a much larger relationship, which was the World Media Expo from '93 to '96, and that World Media Expo engaged a lot of other divisions or organizations, and then that turned into probably the relationship that we have today, where in 1997, SBE became a permanent part of the NAB in terms of working on the Broadcast Engineering Conference Committee. And that is one of our strongest conferences at NAB and a real point of pride for the NAB, and I hope so for the SBE as well. What I want to talk about tonight, first I'm going to kind of take a look back at some of the years past. I'm going to then talk about the current state of things and maybe a little look at the future. And that's going to include some of the challenges that we have in front of us, as well as some of the opportunities. But looking back, you cannot look back on broadcasting, and in particular broadcast engineering, without talking about John Battison and the role that he played in founding and helping to get started this great organization back in 1964 with its founding at an NAB convention, by the way. And so it was that type of doer, of visionary, of problem solver that makes me so excited to be in this room today, because I see all of that in you all as well. But today, that first interested group of 100 people, as Joe was talking about, has turned into well over 100 chapters in an international organization with over 5,500 members. So it's seen great growth, and I think that really speaks to the value of SBE and what it provides to its membership, because you don't have that type of that type of international growth without being a meaningful organization. And if you look back across that time, whether it's radio and the development from AM to FM and to more recently into HD radio, and then looking at what stations are doing today with streaming, or you look at television and the move from black and white to color, going from reel to tape to discs to now, other forms of storage, the move from analog to digital, the idea of going from microwave, using fiber, using bonded cellular to actually get video signals back into the station now. There's been so much change, and then as you look forward and you say, well, okay, there's 2K and 4K and 8K, and where is all this going? There is a great need for education, and that has been a vital role that SBE has played. And 37 years ago was when the first certification program started, and so many folks have been trained and benefited from the SBE certifications, and today there are just dozens of courses that really keep broadcasting a vital and highly technical arena that continues to thrive. And so one of the things that I love about my time with engineers and engineering at television and radio stations is the personalities and the underlying just knowledge that there's a fundamental desire to share, right? There's a fundamental desire to help, there's curiosity, and there is innovation. And as I thought back about different examples that I might use, I was at Capitol Broadcasting for 19 years and worked with a number of great engineers and really smart folks that got to do a lot of different things. In particular, I was able to work on a lot of the first digital projects and work with folks like Tom Beauchamp and Craig Turner, and then later Pete Socket, and a lot of fun things, from putting the first HD signals on the air to launching experimental mobile television. But one of the projects that I want to talk about that I had a lot of fun with really exemplifies that desire to share. And it's not about Capitol Broadcasting. It was about when I was on a project working with Intel. And so we had partnered with Intel, and Intel had a Center for Datacasting Innovation. And back in 2000, through our satellite division at Capitol Broadcasting, a company called Microspace, we had partnered with both WREL and a lot of the people that I had mentioned, as well as Intel out in Santa Clara. And Intel had put together a relationship with KICU, and they were tied together via fiber and were datacasting to the entire Bay Area. And the chief engineer at the time was David Lingenfelter. And David, when I got to go out to San Jose and work with the folks at Intel, he was very gracious and welcoming, but two, said, "Come on, let's go up to the tower. Let's go see, where this is working." And so back in Raleigh, we had a 2,000-foot tower on a megawatt transmitter, and so for me to go out to California and to be able to see the way that the towers were much shorter because they were already up on mountains, and the type of coverage and the terrain and just really a different way of doing things was really a lot of fun and really exemplified, the engineer's desire to share and teach and also learn. But the project that we were working on with Intel was for a couple of demonstrations. So we were trying to demonstrate new technology and what the possibilities for digital were, beyond just doing high-definition television or the minimum requirement of an SD channel. What type of data could we put in there? And so what we had done is we had originated an IP data streams. So this included everything from websites and movie files and games from Red Storm Entertainment, all the way to just streaming video using the real networks, video encoders. And those were typically used over traditional internet, but we were taking that IP and putting it over MPEG and then delivering it out via broadcast. So we had an uplink in Raleigh, downlink in both WREL in Raleigh as well as in the Center for Datacasting Innovation. That then piped over to KICU, and we were able to show at the MCAS 2000 show, as well as at the Real Network Developers Conference, a couple of applications of IP over MPEG delivery using the broadcast system. And that was great because it did what we needed it to do. We proved that it worked. What we didn't know, and this was a really valuable lesson, was later that year, actually the next year, we still had this system up and in place, and it was really for demonstration purposes. But we were in the midst of a severe ice storm. And during the midst of this severe ice storm, you all, and I know I'm in Verona and north of Syracuse, but we don't do ice very well in Raleigh. When the ice hits, it's like somebody blows a whistle and everybody drives in a ditch. I mean, it's terrible. And so we were in the midst of one of these really bad ice storms, and we lost internet connectivity to our building. And we prided ourselves at the time not just on our ability to deliver the latest, most important news over the air, but also on keeping our website up to date. And because we did this data broadcasting program, one of our engineers reminded us, hey, don't we have the data broadcast system up? Yeah. Well, can't we, data broadcast over to where our data center is and push all of our files there so we can update our website? Yes. So we immediately took something that started off as an experiment and a demonstration, and we turned it into a real-world benefit that kept us on the air, if you will, on our website. It kept us up and running, and it demonstrated really the power of being digital and the ability to take that flexible system and do new things with it. And it was all because of engineers that was able to happen. Now, looking forward, I'm still looking to the day where we're able to actually broadcast those things directly to the home, and people will have those sorts of IP receivers directly. But that was a great example of problem solving, of breaking new ground, and of using technology in a new way. And it all started and was generated through the generosity of other engineers that wanted to share and collaborate on a new project together. And so when I think about that, I also think about what we're doing today as we begin to pivot and look forward with NAB Labs. And so I just want to talk a little bit about a couple of things that we're doing at NAB Labs, because you may have heard of NAB Labs, but kind of, what is that? And so a few of the things that we're working on today with NAB Labs would be AM all-digital testing. So the idea of taking the Ubiquity in-band on-channel and taking and looking at not using a hybrid system, but putting it all digital. And just earlier this week, David Lair was up in Seattle and doing some tests with a couple of stations, and that was our 8th field test that we did. And we're collecting that data, we're gathering it all up, and we're preparing it to present to our radio members as well as our board members, and then ultimately if they decide to take it forward, it'll lead to some efforts with the FCC. But there's field tests and lab tests that could really benefit a large number of radio stations across the country if they choose to adopt it. But it's about gathering that learning. Another example is on the television side is we are testing DVB-T2, which is not the current modulation system that's used certainly in the U.S., but is used in some European countries. And we're testing it in Baltimore and have run field tests. Dennis has actually been assisting us with some of that. But NAB Labs has defined those tests, has put them out there, and we've been testing for 4 different scenarios using different configurations to find out what is mobile reception like using DVB-T2 under a certain setup. What is indoor reception like? What is fixed reception like? How does it compare in all the different environments that we may want to use it as we look to the next generation of broadcasting for television and hope to have more of a slidable scale, if you will, of ways to configure the system. And so NAB Labs is doing that sort of experimentation now and are pretty excited about it. And the reason we're excited about it is because of some of the challenges that we're facing as an industry. I mean, it's no surprise that the FCC has not been a great friend of broadcasting as of late. We're under a lot of pressure regarding spectrum and regarding how we operate our businesses and what the best use of that spectrum might be. And a lot of that is coming from internet viewing. They're saying, oh, well, the internet is the new thing. Mobile broadband is the new thing. Let's go there. And so, we have to do a lot of work on that. But as we look at those sorts of patterns, I do think it's worth taking an honest look and saying that, right now there are about 4.5 hours a day of television viewing that take place in our country. And then mobile and internet viewing has grown to 2.5 hours. So they're at about 55% of the hours or time spent. Now, television viewing is kind of holding its own and holding steady. If you count DVRs, it's actually has grown, but it's not. I'd say it's kind of holding steady. Whereas if you look at internet viewing, and by internet viewing I'm talking about on your computer, it's also kind of holding steady. But mobile viewing is growing rapidly, and that trend is not expected to change. And then if you look at viewing on internet-connected devices, which today include smart televisions, but also include devices like Roku, Apple TV, the Amazon Firebox, and others. That number goes up even more. So the content that has so long been the domain of broadcasters, is now, starting to pop up in places like Netflix and others. So we have to be aware of that and understand how does broadcasting fit in that context. Looking at the radio, I think the hybrid radio app that was launched by Emmis is getting over 600,000 minutes of listening a day. Now, keep in mind, that's only on one carrier, Sprint, and that's only on a select number of handsets. But there is great demand on these devices for the consumption of broadcast content. But there are also lots of people who would say, hey, I'd rather build a different kind of business by streaming it to you. So we've certainly got to be aware of the growth in streaming. As we look at what the mobile folks are doing, there's something called LTE broadcast, and AT&T and Verizon have announced that they have trials for LTE broadcast, or they have intentions of deploying it. As we've looked at the time frame and the possibility of a meaningful deployment, it's probably going to be in 2018 or 2019 before they're able to actually get the devices in the market, get the hardware and software configured. But as you look at that, some folks say, hey, what's happening? Is the cell network now going to become a broadcast network? And what does that mean for broadcasters? So we've got a lot of challenges, a lot of potential competitors. It's a very fluid landscape, but we are also in a great position because of the very nature of broadcasting and the strengths of having our one-to-many distribution system, and we're looking to improve that. So the last digital transition, right? We went from standard definition to high definition. We went from 2 channels of audio to 5.1 surround sound. We went to the ability to do things like IP delivery, such as I was describing earlier. Now we're looking for ATSC 3.0. And we're looking at, what could the next generation of television look like? And one of the things that we're talking about is a switch from VSB to OFDM as a modulation technique. We're talking about IP transport. So instead of an MPEG-2 transport layer, looking at an IP transport layer. And if you think about a couple of the points that I just talked about, a couple of the challenges that we're facing in terms of distribution, and you look at the way DOCSIS is going and the way some of these other technologies and over the top is going, being on an IP platform, in my opinion, is probably going to be one of the biggest and best improvements that we could make to broadcasting, and that supports so many other business opportunities that may not even be well understood at this point. We're also looking at high-efficiency video codecs, and so a new compression standard that will enable us to do either more HD channels or more SD channels, or certainly could look to do 4K or perhaps even beyond with that. And we're also getting much closer to Shannon's limit in terms of signal-to-noise ratio. So those are some great improvements that are on the table and that are teed up and that are being actively worked on in the ATSC today. And I kind of boil all that down into we can deliver more and we can deliver better. And when you can deliver more and better, then that puts you in a good place. So I want to sort of recap by just, again, saying that broadcasting is in a wonderful place. The NAB and SBE have enjoyed a strong and successful relationship. Every, good organization, I believe, celebrates its people. And that's what tonight is about, is celebrating its people. And so I look forward to seeing the winners and meeting them in person and congratulating them. And I'm delighted to be here tonight and be a part of this. I do think we have a bright future. As Jim Goodman used to say, the golden age is upon us. It's not behind us. And it's just up to us to seize that opportunity because we have the best delivery, we've got the best content, and we have the highest level of engagement. But we can't stand still. So my challenge to you would be to keep solving, keep innovating, keep sharing, and keep serving. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam, for sharing your insights and where broadcast technology is headed in the future, and for sharing with us the activities of the NAB technology team. And at this point, I'd like to please accept this, ask you to accept this token of our thanks and appreciation for your presentation tonight. Great. Thank you. Before we begin our awards presentation, I'd like to take several moments to recognize our host, Chapter 22 of the Central New York chapter, and the roots of the Broadcast Technology Expo go back to 1970 when Chapter 1 first staged a regional event in the southern New York State town of Owego. Beginning in 1972, the event moved north to Syracuse, and ever since, was operated by Chapter 22 of Central New York. Chapter 22 was chartered in 1969, led by the late Paul Barron, Director of Engineering at WCNY TV in Syracuse, and a group of station engineers and equipment manufacturers from Syracuse and the surrounding counties of Central New York State. The organizational meeting was held on October 30th, 1968 at the studios of WCNY Television. At that first gathering, 29 potential society members attended, including SBE National President Al Chismark, who was the chief engineer of WHEN TV in Syracuse and National Executive Secretary, and Charles Hallinan of WKOP Radio in Binghamton, New York. The Broadcast and Technology Expo is the only totally independent, volunteer-managed regional event of its kind in the country. Over the years, the members of Chapter 22 have planned and carried out the event, moved locations, and other aspects of the event several times, all with the goal of proving the best possible regional program for SBE members and others in the media field. We would like to thank members of Chapter 22 who are attending tonight. Please stand so we may recognize you. And I'd also like to recognize the chairman of Chapter 22, Christopher Bakura, who also served this year as chairman of the Expo. Christopher, please join me at the podium. We are very appreciative of the support that Christopher, his committee, and the rest of the chapter has provided to the National SBE by hosting our 50th SBE National Meeting. Christopher, please accept our sincere thanks and tremendous efforts made by you and your fellow members of Chapter 22 for the hospitality you have all shown us these past few days. Since 1989, the SBE has recognized outstanding achievement in volunteer service by our members and chapters with the SBE National Awards. The dedication of individual members and chapters working to make the field of broadcast engineering and the SBE stronger and more effective is admirable and worth our recognition. Tonight, we'll recognize a number of SBE chapters and individual members for their outstanding achievements during the past year, and for one, over the span of his broadcasting career. John Heimerl, member of the National Board of Directors, served as this year's National Awards Committee chairman. John, please join me at the podium to assist me with the presentation of the awards recognizing our chapters. Serving with John on the awards committee this year were Andrea Cummis, Chapter 15, New York City, Joe Davis, Chapter 54, Hampton Roads, Dale Gaiman, Chapter 41, Akron, Pennsylvania, and Ted Hand, Chapter 45, Charlotte, North Carolina. Award winners were selected from nominations received by the committee.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, John.
It is always a pleasure to recognize our brightest, our best achievers with these honors. And these awards recognize work and achievement of individuals and chapters which occurred from June 1st of 2013 through May 31st of 2014. Some of the award categories recognize 2 chapters based on their size. Class A represents the chapters whose membership is less than the national median in 2013 of 33 members, whilst Class B are those chapters who have 33 or more members. And a number of our chapter winners are not present in person this time. However, these awards are going to be accepted on their behalf by members of the National Board who serve as their liaisons or members from the same chapter tonight. And after you've received your award, please stay, because we will get a group photo of everybody with our president. And so it's time to do the honors. The greatest membership growth by percentage in Class A, Chapter 136, Rio Grande Valley. The chapter chairman is Peter Hoaxum, and accepting for Chapter 136 is Board Liaison Wayne Pesina. Wayne, please join us. Greatest membership growth by percentage in Class B, Chapter 32, Tucson, Arizona, chapter chairman Mark Simpson. And accepting for Chapter 32 is chapter member R.J. Russell. R.J., if you would join us, please. The highest average member attendance at chapter meetings in Class A, Chapter 134, Beaumont, Texas, Lake Charles, Louisiana. Chapter chairman Wayne Ozio, and accepting for Chapter 134, also Wayne Pesina. So make the trip across the stage, and thank you, Wayne. Highest member attendance at chapter meetings in Class B, Chapter 66, Fresno, California, chapter chairman Ken Holden, and accepting for Chapter 66 is Ralph Hogan, past president. One of our favorite awards is the most certified chapter, something we aim to try to increase every year. Chapter 118 in Class A, Montgomery, Alabama, chapter chairman Wiley Boswell, and chapter certification chairman for Chapter 118 is Charlie Greider, and accepting for Chapter 118 is Ched Kyler. Come on up, Ched. Most certified chapter in Class B is Chapter 131, Inland Empire, California. Chapter chairman, Don Barty. Chapter certification chairman is Paul Claxton. And accepting for Chapter 131, once again, is Ralph Hogan. Best chapter website. And we always have good competition for that. This year, Chapter 16, Seattle, Washington, chapter chairman Martin Hadfield, and accepting for Chapter 16 is Chapter 36 member Jim Dalkey. And Best Technical Article, Book, or Program Award goes this year to Jeremy Ruck of Canton, Illinois, Chapter 49, Central Illinois, for the article We Ponder an All-Digital Future, which appeared in the May 2014 issue of Radio Magazine. On behalf of the Society, we congratulate all of you folks for your individual and chapter accomplishments. Please remain up front for a few moments for the group photo, and we indulge your patience while we do that.
2 rows.
Thank you, folks, very much. And now we return to our regularly scheduled president, Joe Snelson. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Final portion of our awards presentation recognizes special achievements, first by a company and then by individuals. The SBE Technology Award recognizes a company or individual that has created or used technology to advance the art and science of broadcast engineering. Tonight we present the SBE Technological Award to DVEO, Division of Computer Modules Incorporated. The award recognizes the company's development of the UDP packet recovery technology Dozer Box 2 IP. In most regions of the world, public internet infrastructure is not reliable and drops video packets, and public routers do not prioritize video traffic well enough. DVEO's patent-pending Dozer technology routes video through the public internet in a unique way. It does packet recovery of UDP packets via a new technique where 10-plus packets are recovered. Accepting the award for DVEO is Lazio Zoltan, CEO of Computer Modules Incorporated. Les, please join me at the podium. Advances in technology wouldn't take place without the efforts of companies like DVEO. Members of the SBE are always encouraging development of new technology, and we applaud DVEO for its development of the Dozer technology. Congratulations to you and your company. The James C. Williman SBE Educator of the Year Award recognizes one individual each year who has shared knowledge and expertise with others through the classroom, as an author of articles or books, or as a seminar instructor or leader. The award's namesake, Jim Wolman, was national president of the SBE from 1973 to 1975 and is considered the father of SBE's certification program, which is over 40 years, has been the preeminent measure of technical knowledge within the broadcast industry. This year's recipient has been instrumental in continuing the development of broadcast engineers and the involvement of educational requirements for the U.S. Army Visual Information Center. He has implemented educational programs using current technologies. Our recipient entered the military and served in numerous assignments, both in the U.S. locally and abroad, including Korea, Turkey, Texas, and Maryland. He has overseen and mentored young troops by providing effective training in everything from climbing towers in Korea to developing programs that train young soldiers on foreign standards. He became an instructor for the Defense Information School, we also call DINFOS, in Maryland, eventually earning the role of master instructor. He taught over 250 service members at the only military school recognized by the Society of Broadcast Engineers. His accomplishments at DINFOS include developing and writing a 48-lecture-day program for learning basic electronics and new lesson plans for television studio operations. Our recipient is stationed at the Non-Commissioned Officer Academy in Maryland. He teaches the Advanced Leaders course for broadcast engineers in the Army. Within the last year, he has taught 20 advanced level broadcast engineers spanning from the White House to Afghanistan. Through his teaching, our recipient has mentoring and trained leaders to be proficient in managing small teams to achieve broadcast communications goal for the Department of Defense. He not only teaches basic broadcast engineering fundamentals, but also how to implement these fundamentals and serve as managers in combat environments. Through his dedication and passion for teaching, he is always willing to find and implement new avenues to enhance the adult learning experience. We are very pleased to award the James C. Williman SBE Educator of the Year Award to Staff Sergeant Norman P. Portillo, CBT of Baltimore, Maryland. Sergeant Portillo, please join me at the podium.
First things first, I want to thank my wife. If not, it'll be a long ride back to Maryland. I usually tell my students that you guys are technicians, but not only that, you guys are dangerous because you have guns. So imagine that in your mind. So with that, with my years of teaching students, from spanning from deployment, in technical environments and everything like that, they've been to Afghanistan and Iraq. They've gone through some hard times, and the Army has demanded a lot from them for the last couple of years. And many of y'all know that throughout the last couple of years, the unemployment rate for veterans is pretty high compared to the civilian sector. So about a month ago, I got a call from one of my students, and he was like, Sergeant Portillo, thank you so much. I'm like, oh, what do you mean? He's like, I got the job. I'm like, thank you. And he started thanking me because I was always hounding my students, turn in that CBT certification, turn that CBT, it's gonna help you. It's gonna help you for promotion, it's gonna help you to network. And he called me and he got a job at a CBS affiliate. And this soldier I know personally, he deployed twice to Afghanistan. It got to my heart really hard because without SBE, most likely he probably wouldn't have been marketable for the job. So I want to say thank you to SBE for working with vets to make sure they maintain their certification and giving them the recognition that they deserve, and also giving them the credentials to make them marketable in the civilian sector. Thank you.
The Robert W. Flanders SBE Broadcast Engineer of the Year recognizes an individual who has made significant contributions to broadcast engineering and has furthered the goals of the Society. Robert Flanders was the longtime Director of Engineering at WRTV Television in Indianapolis, and from 1971 to 1973 served as the Society's 5th president. It was during this time that he took steps to make vast improvements to professionalize the operations of the SBE, moving the records to Indianapolis and hiring the Society's first staff help, his own secretary, to keep membership records. In the mid-1960s, he was also instrumental in creating the forerunner of the SBE Leadership Development Course, which continues today. This year's recipient was chosen among 11 nominees for the award, who themselves had been named for their chapter engineers of the year. Begun in 2013, the Chapter Engineer of the Year Award seeks to eventually recognize the accomplishment of members of all SBE chapters. This year's national recipient has been a member of the SBE since 1998, holding SBE member status and holds 4 SBE certifications, including Certified Professional Broadcast Engineer, AM Directional, 8 VSB, and Certified Broadcast Network Technologist. His service to Chapter 16 in Seattle has been long and significant, including as a chapter board member and past chapter chairman. He is also very active in the industry outside the SBE, including as a member of the Washington State Emergency Communications Committee and its Technical Advisory Committee. He operates his own broadcast services company and serves as an inspector for the alternative broadcast inspection programs in the states of Washington and Oregon. He is an FCC maritime radio inspector and Coast Guard licensed maritime radio officer. He is also an associate member of the Association of Federal Communications Consulting Engineers. Our recipient holds an FCC General Radio Telephone ticket and is licensed for the Global Maritime Distress and Safety System. He holds a commercial radio telegraph operator license with Ship radar endorsement, and he is a licensed amateur extra class operator, W7PB. There is yet one more authorization he holds as the licensee of a maritime coastal station, KDR, which is authorized to broadcast CW transmissions on 500 kilohertz and 482 kilohertz at 5,000 watts. Our recipient holds 8 patents for innovations in the broadcast and communications industry, and his current projects include a new approach to FM boosters using single-frequency network technology and an AM directional antenna monitor system using fiber optics and FPGA technology. He has presented papers at several NAB broadcast engineering conferences. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to present the 2014 Robert W. Flanders SBE Broadcast Engineer of the Year Award to James Dahlke, CPBE 8VSB AMD CBNT of Bellevue, Washington.
I was pleasantly surprised last summer when my Seattle chapter awarded me the Chapter Engineer of the Year Award at our summer picnic on Vashon Island. And I was even more surprised when I got a call from Megan, who told me that I had been chosen for the SBE National Engineer of the Year Award. At first I thought I need to call my mom. But then I realized that wouldn't work. She's already looking down and she knows about it with a smile. My second thought, hey, this will look good on my resume. And then I thought about the fact it's been a while since I sent out a resume. I thought crossed my mind this will look good in my obituary, but I thought it's a little premature for that. In reality, I do realize that this award is a reminder to me that it is time for me to share my experiences in the broadcast industry with those in the coming generations. That my knowledge and experiences can be an encouragement to them, and I oftentimes am particularly concerned about encouraging young people to get involved in broadcasting. I'm from the Seattle, Washington area where we have Microsoft, and all of the young people I know, including my grandkids, would much rather play and engineer video games than they would get involved in ham radio like I did when I was a kid. One of my current projects is an LPFM KXSU, which I am building out for Seattle University. And part of that project involves working with the students and staff at the university and learning some of the professional aspects of broadcast radio. I'm also going to be sharing some of that experience at the College Broadcasters Association, which is holding their national meeting in Seattle here in a couple of weeks. I got my license when I was, my ham license when I was 14 years old. And I got my first class radio telephone license at the age of 17, and I've been involved in broadcasting one way or the other ever since. I can truly say today that I'm doing what I dreamed about when I was a kid. I want to thank my family, my wife, my kids, my grandkids, and now I even have great-grandkids, for having a papa who's oftentimes thinking out of the box and challenging them. I want to thank the SBE for their encouragement through the certification programs and the professional guidance that I have received through SBE National. I want to thank my fellow members of the Seattle chapter 16, and their encouragement, as well as the Seattle Broadcast, as the Society of Broadcast Engineers as a whole, for this honoring award. I'm looking forward to looking up to this award and all that it represents. Thank you.
The highest honor of the Society of Broadcast Engineers can bestow is that of the membership rank of Fellow. It is a recognition of conspicuous service, dedication, and valuable contributions to the advancement of broadcast engineering over an extended period. Since 1970, 74 members of the Society have been recognized by their ascension to the Fellow grade, and we're pleased to add the 75th member to that group. A number of SBE Fellows are in attendance tonight, and as is our tradition, I invite them to gather behind me on the stage so that we may help welcome our newest Fellow inductee. Our recipient learned electronics by attending night school in the Bronx in the early 1940s, prior to World War II. His career in broadcasting started in 1942 as a telephone switchboard operator at WNBF in Binghamton, New York. He joined the U.S. Signal Corps Reserves, serving as a technical sergeant in World War II, and studied at Drexel Institute in Philadelphia. During the war, he learned to communicate over submarine cables with Western Union. Following the war, he joined WSNY in Schenectady, New York, as a transmitter engineer, and later was instrumental in putting WNBF TV on the air. In 1957, he was in charge of getting WINR TV, now WICZ TV, on the air. He was chief engineer of WINR TV, WICZ TV for many years, and later became a consultant for Stainless Broadcasting, now Northwest Broadcasting. There, he was instrumental in getting many of the affiliates on the air with digital transmitters. He's a charter and life member of SBE, holding member number 117. With Charlie Hallinan and others, he was a founding member of Chapter 1 in Binghamton, New York in 1964 and became the chapter's second chairman. He also served Chapter number 1 as its certification chairman for 36 years, from 1975 to 2011, and as a chapter frequency coordinator for almost 20 years. He is life certified as an SBE certified professional broadcast engineer. He is known by his peers for his willingness to share his knowledge and equipment, even at his own expense. He has welcomed new technology after thorough examination and thought. Ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to present to the membership designation of SBE Fellow upon Gino Ricciardelli, CPBE of Vestal, New York. Gino, please join me at the podium.
First of all, I want to thank the Board of Directors for this honor that they bestowed on me. And I was very surprised when the secretary called me on the phone from NAB and told me that they were going to make me a fellow. And I couldn't believe it at first, but then after thinking about it for a while, I realized that it was really coming true. As you well heard, some of my career that I went through by being in the Army, United States Signal Corps, and I was known as a submarine cable technician. People always ask me, was it a submarine in the water? I said, no, it's a cable laid at the layer of the sea or the ocean. And one of the projects that I was given at the time was with 2 other technicians. We built 4 terminal units to be used for cables going between Algiers, southern France, and Italy. And each week I would go up and down Algiers, Tunisia, and Libya, check the cables to make sure the Germans hadn't destroyed them. And I went up and down for quite a few months. And prior to the invasion of southern France and Italy, I went down to see the cables, and sure enough, the Germans had cut it. So that project died because the Allied forces got almost into Germany before we needed any of that communication. So these 4 units that we built, I said to myself, what are we going to do with them? Finally, I got the word, they're going to go to Malta, the island of Malta, and you're going to work with the British Navy and get a cable going from Malta to Libya. I did that for 3 months, and then they sent me back to my outfit in Italy, and I have one little story I always tell. My last project in the Signal Corps was to refurbish what we call walkie-talkies, which are the Seafold's cell phones of today, except these things were about 1 foot long. I had an antenna that almost went up to the sky. And the infantry and artillery and other units used these things for communication. Suddenly one day, truckloads, dump trucks of these things came in. They dumped all these things on the ground. I looked at them and I said, how are we going to get all these things going? Because they wanted these refurbished, sent to the Japanese war front. And I looked at my 2 colleagues and said, we're not going to get this done fast enough, because what they wanted was at least 100, 150 units per day to be shipped to the Japanese war front. So I went to my colonel who was in charge of the project, and I said, I need help. He said to me, okay, I'll see what I can get you. A few days later, 30 German prisoners of war appeared. Okay? And I said to myself, how am I going to communicate instructions? I don't speak German. How am I going to commute? I go to the sergeant in charge of these gentlemen, and I said, well, you got a translator? He said, we don't need a translator. These guys know your equipment. We captured hundreds of these things. So I said, okay. So we then, for 2 or 3 months, we turned out these units, and I went out and hired 20 local Italians to help my guys package these things up. And then the war ended in Japan, and I and 30 prisoners of war, we all went home. I have a career of, I'm coming to the end of it, I think. I don't know yet, because nobody's told me this yet. But I've come to the end of about 68 years of being into this business, because when I got discharged from the Army, as you well know, I got my first job in broadcasting at a little 250-watt station in Schenectady. I then proceeded to get into television, and one of the interesting things that I found when I was told this is your project, I said, what do I know about television? I know radio, because I've been in radio for a while. Finally, RCA sent a field engineer, and he came on the scene, and believe it or not, I ate breakfast, lunch, and supper for 30 days while he was there, and that's how I learned anything about television. I finally got started, and I put that station on the air. I then put another commercial station on the air in Binghamton. I put the public broadcasting station on the air, and then I proceeded to go and work as a consultant for 2 companies. One was Stainless Leasing, which is a tower company. Some of you are familiar with it. It's gone out of business, but it still does service work. Anyway, I did that for about 12 years, and finally I turned it over to another gentleman in the group of 6 stations, because my project was to get those stations converted from analog to digital. I accomplished that, and then my wife had some health problems. I had to become a caregiver, and I stopped doing that. And right now I'm a consultant just for 1 station in Binghamton, New York. The SBE educated me. If they didn't do anything else, they educated me. I went to workshops whenever they were close enough to Binghamton, New York. I went to 1 workshop 10 years before we got into digital television. I went to that workshop. I came back to the station, and I said to a couple of engineers who were working on my staff, I said, I got this information, maybe you're interested in it. And they said, both of them said to me, digital's never going to go. People can't afford to go out and buy digital television sets. It's never going to take off. Just forget it. I said, okay, if that's the way you want to feel. I said, but it's going to come, and you're going to become a dinosaur because you're not going to be ready for it. So that was one of the things that I got out of SBE, plus the various books that you could buy at the bookstore. I had a library full of books on all sorts of technical things that you could buy at the bookstore. And I used to say to my colleagues, you want to read some of this stuff? Well, some of them would read it, and others would say, well, you know, I don't have to worry about that, so I don't want to read it either. But I got great stuff out of those books, which I turned over to the present chief because I've read them all. So that's one of the things that SBE has done for me, plus meeting all various different people throughout the industry, plus the exhibitors. As you went and watched all these exhibits that we used to have, we had the first exhibit convention in Owego, New York, a little town outside of Binghamton. And we did that for a couple of years and then discovered we weren't big enough. We didn't have enough members to take care of it. So we went, and Channel 22 took over and did a fine job all these years. So that's roughly my career and a few little things that happened along the way. I went to a station in Reading, Pennsylvania. I'll give you another little story. The station could not get to full power. Their staff didn't know how to do it. And finally, I went there, and I spent about 6 months there. I left because I knew the station was going to go dark. And the reason it was going to go dark is that the owner, his wife's money is what they were using to build the station, and she finally ended up divorcing him. That was the end of the station. So that was another interesting thing that I came across in my career. So again, I want to thank the SBE and the directors for the honor that they've given me tonight, and I hope that my little stories have kept you amused. Thank you.
Congratulations and welcome, fellow Saul. Good job.
Long overdue.
Welcome.
Thank you.
This brings to a close our National Awards Dinner and 50th SBE National Meeting. We look ahead to 2015 with much anticipation as we, as a professional society of broadcast and media professionals, will carry the responsibility of implementing the latest technology to the benefit of the viewing and listening public. I congratulate all of tonight's award winners and ask that you assemble briefly all the winners to the left of the podium after we close for photographs. I would also like to express our sincere thanks to Sam Matheny for his presentation tonight, to our awards dinner sponsor, the Telos Alliance, to our host, SBE Chapter 22. Finally, my thanks to all of you for attending the national meeting here in Verona, and to those who have been watching via the internet. I hope you'll plan to be with us again next year when the 51st SBE National Meeting will be held with Chapter 24 in the Wisconsin Broadcasters Clinic in Madison, Wisconsin. Good night, everyone. Thank you.